News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you until the top of the hour. Hope you're having a good Sunday. With us on our Zoom show, because we're also recording this to go up to YouTube, is from representing Pitt and Frank attorneys, Kevin Disler. You can reach Kevin and his group over at Pitt and Frank at 895-9900. Also, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service at 844-411-TEAM. And we are proud and among the first to report that the Home Team Inspection Service here in Louisville is now ranked number one, count them, 8 years in a row. Congratulations, Brad.
Hey, thank you very much. Now that it's official, we appreciate all the well wishes and all the support through the last 8 years.
Very good. That's good. You're doing great. Also here, my son Greg, who does our marketing, photography, and so much more. And by proof of that, he's even at this hour over at a house, a new construction that we're listing this one in Landher, Greg?
Yeah, it'll be up very soon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in Woods of Landher, doing some 3D for the builder, just for teaser stuff for their site, for our site, just good overall marketing stuff as the progress goes along.
Good. Love it. Very good. All right. Let's get to the questions again. We're doing our Zoom show. What that means is you send me an email, bob@WeSellLouisville.com. In the subject line, radio question. In the body of the email, put the question. And then we move on, like this one with Billy. And Billy wrote us, he says he's about to have a home inspection, and he's wondering, Brad, what are some of the red flags that he should be looking for when he gets the home inspection report? Good question. Yeah.
Yeah. No, very good question. A lot of times people will stop at the first or second page. Most of the home inspectors will put a summary of the findings on the first or second page, or at the very end. I mean, It depends on their format. But he needs to go in, and Billy needs to look at all the pages, because the summary only really identifies some of the major concerns, the what they call material defects that were found, or safety defects. But there's going to be a lot of other information in the report that he needs to be looking for. As far as specific red flags, I mean, agents, do a great job working with clients, explaining, really what the problems are. It's really more about negotiating, the final package with the other party. But I think that one of the things that he probably wants to be aware of is anything having to do with water, anything having to do with electrical or plumbing upgrades that might need to be looked at, the roof, understanding more about the appliances. But in every case, make sure that they are identifying additional, contractors or specialists that need to evaluate certain parts of the house. We often, as home inspectors, will tell people, hey, this area of the roof looks like it might be damaged. You really want to get a licensed roofer out here to take a look at it. And then they just pass that by. And then they find out, 3 months after they move in, that the roof is leaking, and they go, oh, well, we didn't know that you wanted a roofer to come out and look at it. But yeah, that's why the home inspector will say, this needs further evaluation by a qualified professional. So just look for those clues within the report. But yeah, it's really important to read the entirety of the report.
Right. And we've talked about in the past. It's a great point to bring up again. By the way, Greg is in the process of right now about to fly the drone. Greg, that's right. What unit are you using now? Because you don't need your phone.
Two. Well, I've got two. I've got these new two of the new DJI drones. They have a
built-in.
I get the one with the built-in screen, because I can multitask.
There you are.
Radio.
You just
and right. I got some listings.
So IRS, if you wonder why he's taking that as a deduction, it's exactly for this reason.
You got photographic evidence.
It's exactly it.
I'm a photographer. This is what I do.
This is not a toy.
I've got a library.
If you would like to see Greg doing what he's doing, go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's LouisvilleAnswers.com, and you can see the show video, as well as in one corner, Greg putting the drone up, and you'll see what he's doing. All right, we move over to Kevin, and we try to talk about the questions about homes purchasing, condos purchasing. We also try to include renters and rentals. And so, Kevin, this comes from Tommy. He owns a single-family house here in Louisville. The renter stopped paying his monthly rent. Now, to complicate matters, the renter was a friend of Tommy's and had agreed. Tommy had agreed to let the renter stay there at a reduced rent, but now Tommy says the friend has stopped paying altogether. So he's wondering, how does he have to attract or move or eject his former friend? What's the process?
Well, Tommy gets to enjoy the process of the eviction courts here. I'm assuming it's in Jefferson County.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's got a written lease agreement with his friend, but you have to follow the terms of that. Usually, you have to be outside the terms of the lease. You have to give the appropriate notice. Usually, it costs $300 to $500 to go through the eviction process, but you can't self-help. That's the number one thing.
You can't self.
You can't use self-help like changing the locks when the gentleman's at work, things of that nature. It'd be a breach of the peace. So you have to go through the eviction process down at the courthouse. You know, recently with all the COVID restrictions, and there was federal law and state law limiting the ability to do that. But I think everything's pretty much opened back up now. So again, usually there's a notice provision. You have to get the eviction proceeding. If they're still not out, ultimately you have to get the sheriff. And I think it's 5 individuals to help set them out is what the term of art is used. So that part gets costly. And so occasionally,
can these be friends of Tommy's that help to set his other friend out?
Not necessarily a good idea to do that. And occasionally you'll drive by and you'll see some people's possessions out in the gutter in front of their home, and that's usually a set out where their personal goods were set outside the road. And, so, but the sheriff will go out there to keep peace, but they're not going to be moving stuff out of the house. So you have to hire a crew to do that.
And just a little caveat here, if Tommy doesn't have a lease because this guy was his friend and now has stopped paying, is Tommy more out of luck at this point?
Makes it a little bit more difficult because you're kind of going out of the realm of a tenant, and the rules as to landlord and tenant are pretty well defined. If someone's there as an occupant of the property, to say you allow a friend of the family to come use your place, well, they're there. They're not technically a tenant, but they refuse to leave. You do have to go through probably a little bit more hoops because there's not a written lease agreement. But the same process, the eviction process.
Got it. All right. If you'd like to see what sellers are saying and talking and writing about us, by the way, our Sokoler team, you can go to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. That takes you to our YouTube channel for sellers. Also, you can review the reviews that we have at LouisvilleZillow.com and LouisvilleGoogle.com. All right. So, Brett, Graham is about to buy a home that is being flipped by a do-it-yourselfer. And in this email that we just received, he says he's recently read a report that some of the worst homes are those that were owned by do-it-yourselfers and flippers. He says, is that something that you agree with, and what type of extra caution should someone buying this type of home take?
Well, I unfortunately do agree with that statement. We inspect a lot of homes that are flips, and I guess the definition of a flip is someone has purchased a home, has done renovations on the home, they never lived in the home, and then they turn around and sell it. The problem with the flips is you don't necessarily know who's done the work. We see a lot of situations where it does not appear that any sort of permits were pulled for the work. For instance, we had a house here a couple years ago where the flipper pulled the dead front, which is the cover for the electrical panel, the breaker box, and they pulled that off in order to keep the code sticker that was from, I think, 1996. And then they modified the panel itself in order to fit another breaker in. And then they attempted to pass it off as something that had been, code certified years ago, but you could tell that the recent work had taken place. Things like that. In that house, they also had capped off one of the return air ducts and a supply to a bathroom, which happened not to have a window in it. So that room was going to get extremely hot or extremely cold, depending on the weather. Lots and lots of problems with plumbing. The flips can be really difficult. Home Team actually has a note in our report that gives a little bit more information about, essentially it says, hey, this looks like it might have been a home that was flipped. Please understand that while everything may look great, we can't see what's, behind walls. We don't know what type of work has been done where things are hidden. So I don't want to paint the picture where every flip is terrible, but you definitely walk with a little bit more caution in those type of situations, because you just don't know who's done what.
By the way, coming up in just a little bit, 15 ways winter weather damages your home. And Brett, I sent you a copy of that.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to go over that. Kevin, back over to you. Greer writing in And, we talk about problems between a buyer and a seller. So first, there's a small claims court. If the cost is below 2,500, is that the max right now, Kev? Do you remember offhand?
I think small claims is a little higher than that now,
Okay.
but I'd have to double check.
Okay. So then we talk mediation and then arbitration. Greer is writing in. He says he's in the middle of mediation, which is someone's going to listen to both sides, Kev, and then make a decision. It's not binding.
It's usually a retired attorney or a retired judge that you're attempting to kind of negotiate with both parties and come up with a resolution.
So Greer has an attorney, and he's not happy with his attorney who is representing him, Greer. So he's wondering what's the best way to terminate that attorney-client relationship amicably. And this is the first time we've had this question. So, and lucky Kevin got it. So is there a way to terminate an attorney that you're not happy with?
I think that first of all, you have the absolute right to do so. But the question is, what's the most appropriate way to do that?
Yeah.
First of all, I think that you probably need to do it in writing, whether it be a formal letter or an email. And, you just, I think, need to be somewhat clear while you were taking the action that you're taking, but not so much as to cause further issues. You could say that just you had a disagreement on the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You were concerned that perhaps that the preparation wasn't what you were not expecting. Just because a result doesn't come out the way that you want it to come out does not necessarily mean that the attorney didn't do a great job for you. But sometimes it's like anything else. You mentioned realtors. You want to find someone that you can work with. There are good people out there, and ultimately you have to have someone that's good that you can also work with and relate to pretty well. And sometimes personalities don't quite mix, in which case I think you just need to say it's best for you to move forward and no hard feelings, but do it in writing and sever the relationship. You're probably going to owe the fees and then move on to the next. And what you want to do is have the attorney fully cooperate with your new attorney to make sure there's a nice transition of all the materials that you need for your case and that there's some dialogue between your new counsel and your prior counsel.
And I would suspect you're going to suggest that the new attorney that you're going to go with in Greer's case already be picked and waiting, and don't hit it cold just in case there's a time delay, right?
I would, especially if there's some time-sensitive matters, and in certain cases, the attorney that you'd like to discharge, you may have to keep them on a little bit longer, in that if you've got a time deadline in 3 or 4 business days and does not give you enough time to switch over, you may want to have to retain, and they ethically may have to at least take that next step in the procedure.
Got it. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, 15 ways winter weather damages your home. I have a personal stake in this, and I'll explain. Here with us, continuing representing Pitt and Frank attorneys, Kevin Disler. He's a great guy. You can pick the attorney you want to close your loan or even do wills, of course. You can reach Kevin at 895-9900. Also, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, now 8 years in a row, the #1 home team inspection service in the country. Very proud of Brad. You can reach Brad at 844-411-TEAM. My son Greg, who is currently shooting video from the drone, and you can see that by going to LouisvilleAnswers.com. Are you bringing it in for a landing, Greg?
Yeah, there.
Yeah. And, there it comes. Look, we couldn't have planned it any better. Are you going to catch it in midair? Well, I'm not so sure. I'm a big believer in that. But in a few minutes, Greg has a gripe that he wants to talk about. And we'll talk about that with him. And Brad and Kevin will get you involved in as well. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler, anytime. If you are looking to sell your home, look, we sell a lot of homes. On average, between 275 and 325 homes per year. We would love to help you, even if it's just to come out, talk about the process. That's free, no obligation, and I'll spend as much time as you want. You can reach me anytime, day or night, 376-5483, or send me an email, bob@wesellouisville.com, or go to the website, bobsellmyhome.com. How about that? We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show. We are here with you till the top of the hour. Thank you, Barbara Corcoran, for your endorsement. We're going up to see Barbara, I think, at the beginning of March for another little meet and greet with her. With us, continuing from Home Team Inspection Service, the folks who are now 8 years in a row, the #1 home team inspection service in the country, Brad Lawler, and you can reach Brad and his team at 844-411-TEAM, representing Pitt and Frank attorneys, Kevin Disler, 895-9900. My son Greg is continuing to, well, he's putting the drone away. We'll talk with you in a second. And you can reach me if you're thinking about selling your home. We'd love to come out, talk to you about the process. It's free, no obligation. See what we do, and we'll talk about what the home is worth and what needs to be done, or if anything needs to be done when it comes time to sell your home, whether it's this year, next year, or beyond. You can reach me at 376-5483. All right. So 15 ways winter weather damages your home. I woke up this past week. It was raining, you may remember, midweek, and in the hallway, I had a puddle, which obviously means I've got a roof leak, and I'm guessing it's going to be probably caulk around something around the chimney. Who knows? We'll see.
One of the plumbing boots.
Could be a boot. In my case, I don't have any really good roofers that I trust, so I called Brad. Brad gave me a name. He's coming out tomorrow. Yeah, so he's going to do that.
Right.
So, all right. So snow and ice. I'll give the topic, Brad. Just give us a one-liner so that everybody knows. So 15 ways winter weather and snow and ice. What does it do to the roof?
Well, it puts a lot of weight on it, puts a lot of stresses on it. And this is where you see those roof leaks start after everything thaws out. So it's a lot of things. With the extreme cold weather we had, there's some people that may have ice dams that are forming too in the gutters, which push up underneath the shingles, causing a lot of additional challenges.
The cold cracks caulk as well. That's around the gutters or where?
Well, it can be any of the caulk, any of the exterior caulks. The other thing that the cold is doing is for those folks that have damaged thermal seals. Where your windows look a little foggy, you probably have a lot of water. I have friends who had ice over the Christmas weekend. They had ice inside their house. They're wondering how that formed. And those are just the broken thermal seals that gets cold. You want to make sure those areas stay dry because that's going to cause wood rot too along the way.
And winter supplies damaging the driveway. That's a tough one, right?
Yeah, because we use shovels, we use all sorts of things to clear snow and ice. That's tearing stuff up. Also, a lot of the chemicals we put down, particularly salt, can be very damaging to asphalt, to concrete. The winter weather generally is just hard on all of those exterior surfaces.
And then we've got the snow and ice snapping tree limbs. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Wet conditions rot door frames, so that could be a real problem. Yeah,
they do, and window frames as well. Anytime water sits on wood, it's going to potentially cause rot, which is going to cause the additional problems that are going to have to be attended to by removing the rotted wood and replacing with new. Particularly, you just don't want to make sure the termites stay out of that stuff as well.
And we've pointed out a little bit this on the driveway, but shoveling chips your steps as you enter into your house as well, right?
Yeah, sure does.
Then melting snow, got to be careful. Melting snow can leak into the basement.
I notice sometimes people pile up snow against their house too. When you're shoveling a walk, don't throw it towards your house, throw it towards the yard because you don't want that snow melting and then finding a way through a crack into your basement for sure.
Changing temperatures can crack your chimney. I wasn't aware that that's a thing.
Well, it's really the spalling of the brick. The freeze thaw cycles knock the smooth faces off the brick. So if you've got bricks that look rough now, you want to talk to a masoner about getting those replaced because the water will continue to attack those bricks and it'll cause structural issues.
And what's the impact on decks?
Decks really, it's just, snow will sit on the deck. It'll keep it wet. Again, if you're not staining your deck and cleaning it regularly, then you're causing wood rot there as well, shortening the life cycle of the deck.
Also, cold weather freezes the sump pump. I wasn't aware that was a
it's funny. It's not so much freezing the sump pump as it's the discharge lines. We find people that end up with the extensions that go away from the house where they'll get impacted. Maybe they have leaves that got, kind of clogged up at the end, and those pipes will actually freeze, and then the sump pump is basically just pumping water back into the basement. We've heard and seen a few of those examples here over the Christmas break.
One more thing here, the dry air shrinks plaster. That's just from dry heat from the inside, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's also, in a lot of homes, you have a gap that forms between the wall and the ceiling. And people wonder why that happens. That's what they call truss uplift. It's particularly noticeable in older homes and homes built with trusses, but you'll get a gap. It's unsightly, but it's not a structural problem at all. It just, you suddenly have this weird gap that sits at the top of a wall, and that's just the normal cycle of a house as it goes through the cooling cycle, and the wood shrinks and lifts up, lifting the ceiling with it.
Some of the ways winter damages our home. We're going to get to Greg in a moment. First, question for Kevin. Leo writes in. He was, and this will hit anybody who has a condo. It's going to hit you in this question. Leo writes, he says, I have a HOA condo association. Board members built a play area in designated location in one of the buildings that just happened to be my building, Leo's building. Condo association sent an email stating that all kids, adults can play a baseball in the new area. He says, I can hear the ball bouncing every time. Maybe it's basketball because he's bouncing. You're not going to hear it in baseball. Every time someone's playing in the area, this seems like a breach of contract because I thought the condo rules state there's a no annoyance rule. He says, can I start an A class or a class action lawsuit against the board for this? Is this, I'm looking at Kevin's face and he's wincing. So what do you think?
Well, like I said, the first thing that I think that the caller had mentioned was that, first of all, is take a look at the rules that the condominium association has. And that, now I'm assuming that let's call it a basketball court. Maybe not.
Right.
But assume it is properly constructed and installed in a common area that's owned by the association. Sometimes you may have on the design of the condominium regime on the plat itself, there are certain items or areas that are kind of dead areas. There may be another area that's designed for like a dog park, something like that, to make sure that they've complied with all the rules from the beginning of the development of the condominium all the way up. Check the bylaws. I think the gentleman mentioned something about there was some type of a provision about quiet
domain,
right to access. Yeah. Reasonable efforts too. So you have to find something in the written documents that suggests that the condo association did something
nefarious.
Well, hopefully not necessarily, but sometimes you get to the point that they mean well, but they don't dot the I's and cross the T's. And there may be a provision in there that says that you can't do what they did. You can go through the process of trying to amend or revise bylaws, but just with most condominiums, it requires pretty much a supermajority to change a lot of the restrictions. So I would say first and foremost to talk to the association, get together and take a look through all your documentation and make sure you're in a pretty good position, because I'm assuming they spent a lot of money on this improvement. And if you do win and make them take it down, ultimately who's going to pay part of the bill would be you.
Leo.
If the association did, most of them have E&O insurance, and if they did do something that if they looked down at their restrictions, realize that they could not have done, you may have some ability to go against them, and then they would go against their E&O policy. But probably needs to have somebody take a look at it for them.
There you go. Leo, we'll give you Kevin's number in just a few minutes. So Greg is a problem, and we got about 2 minutes.
Small problem.
Without using names.
No names. Quick preface. We work with a lot of builders. We work with a lot of electricians. We work with a lot of companies, and we love them all. This is a word of the wise, a warning, perhaps. A lot of the new light bulbs that are being used in new construction homes they're switching to those LEDs, not an LED bulb, but the flat LED that actually goes into the upper recess can light and screws into where the bulb would screw, but it is a longer lasting, supposedly flat LED. It looks cleaner, blah, 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 blah. You'll see them in new construction homes. They're not a bulb. It's like a flat white piece of glass almost that looks like transparent. Anyway, so one of mine in my house was started to flicker for a couple days, noticed it, and then all of a sudden when I turn on the kitchen lights, the breaker would pop. Now, again, one of my best friends is an electrician. I know how to work my way around an electrical panel. I can hook up a fuse, all that kind of good stuff. So I went up on a ladder and I just pulled the bulb out, and sure enough, turned the light on, breaker no longer popped. So it led me to believe this is the subject problem here, right? So I called my builder. My builder said, oh, the electrical company who installed has a 5-year warranty. They warrant the product. No problem. Call that company. Hey, guys, here's the deal. They say, no problem. Greg, we warrant that product. No worries. We can come out here, 30 minutes. That's going to be a $125 service call.
Oops.
I said, really? $125 service call for something that you claim to warrant, and you're going to charge me more, 10 times, if you look up the cost of what this bulb costs, 10 times more than what. So now, again, this is something that's easily handleable. You can get up on a ladder and do this, but I feel like it's true highway robbery that the service call is $125. And my biggest gripe is when I call them and politely ask to speak to a manager, because my builder will lean on them. My builder has my back. I didn't want to put this in his court because it's 2 years post-build.
Right.
But if you tell me you're going to warrant something for 5 years, and I asked, okay, just warrant it. And I said, can I just give you my old light bulb? You give me the new one. And they said, well, we don't sell light bulbs. And I understand where that can be a slippery slope where if you guarantee that stuff and these things happen. But they said, I need to go back to the company that supplied the light. Now, if I go back to the company that supplied the light, they're going to want proof of purchase. And guess who has proof of purchase?
The
electrical company that installed it.
So
when I asked to speak to a manager, the manager said, or the lady on the phone said, if they have time. And so that infuriated me more. I said, no, this isn't an if. I'm a client.
All right. The point of this, because we're out of time, the point for this is be leery. Brad, Kevin, any suggestions to Greg or anybody else who's having this problem that they want the service companies wants to charge them an arm and a leg just to come out and do what was supposed to be under warrant?
Change the light bulb, really.
Well, I would just say a lot of times you have to actually look at the warranty and what does the warranty actually cover. Does it cover the defective a light bulb, but not the labor? Like I said, sometimes you have to look and determine exactly what's being warranted. Not.
It's the old bait and switch.
Yeah, if it's chicken or the egg, it sounds like. Well, they can't sell it to you.
Brad, anything on your end?
No, I was going to say.
Yeah.
So I was going to say the same thing Kevin did. Yes, the warranty covers what?
So read the fine print, folks. That's the key. The details. Yes. And if it happens to Greg, it could happen to me.
I always like the lifetime warranty. Is that mine or theirs? You know.
We are out of time, folks. My thanks to Kevin Dissler, representing Pitt and Frank Attorneys. You can reach Pitt and Frank and Kevin at 895-9900. Brad Lawler, owner, Home Team Inspection Service, the #1 home team inspection service in the country now, 8 years in a row. And you can reach Home Team at 844-411-TEAM. My thanks to my son Greg, who's a bit on the
my griping
son. Greg.
Reach middle age.
Yep, and thank you. Yeah, and then you can reach me anytime you're thinking about selling your home. We'd love to come out, talk to you about the process, and explain. And we can just map with a plan that might work for you for this year or next year or beyond. You can reach me, Bob Sokoler, 376-5483, or send me an email, bob@wesellouisville.com, or go to bobsellmyhome.com. We are out of time. Have a great Sunday. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.